Welcome to the Rise or Die podcast. This is Stephen M. Lowisz for episode 1. I want to start first and foremost by thanking everyone for taking a crack at this podcast. There's a billion podcasts that you could be listening to, and for some wacky ass reason, you're actually listening to mine. So appreciate it. Thank you. I want to explain what the Rise or Die podcast is. First and foremost, it came from this idea that every second you're not expanding, every second you're not growing, investing in yourself, developing yourself, you're on your way to death. 99% of the population is a bunch of walking zombies. In their body, they're alive, although I would say many are barely living, breathing, and functioning. But almost everyone, when you look at it, is dead emotionally, spiritually, mentally. They're just drained. People live without purpose, without contentment, without fulfillment, without expansion. I call this death. What the hell is the point in living if it's miserable? And I was like this for the longest time. Now, to give you a little bit of background, I'm actually only 21 years old, but I got started in my career pretty early. I'm already married, no kids yet. That's a few years away. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'll dive into my background over, the next hundreds of episodes. This is a daily podcast, absolutely daily. So the reason, let me backtrack for a second. The reason for the podcast is to give you the good, the bad, the ugly in body, being, balance, and business, called the Core 4. Now, I'm throwing a lot at you. Let's take the concept of if you're not rising, you're dying. Complacency is equal to death. Let's apply it to the 4 areas of life. And this was coined by Garrett J. White, founder of Wake Up Warrior, awesome organization. And he came up with the concept that there's 4 areas of your life that matter. Everything else is bullshit. 1 is body, meaning fitness. 2 is being, meaning faith, religion. Balance is marriage and family. Business, well, that's easy, your financial situation. So let's look specifically in each and every episode on how we're going to rise in body, being, balance, and business every single day. Now, there's 1,000 podcasts out there that are 2, 3, 4 hours long even, and maybe they're only recorded once a week or once a month, whatever, maybe once a quarter. And there's some awesome content in those. I subscribe to a few myself, but it's not practical to expect you every single day to give you new content, to listen to new content. Second of all, I'm not a genius. I can't come up with new content every day. What I can come up with every single day is stories from my journey in entrepreneurship, in being young and married, in trying to get more fit and become a weapon for my family. And I'll get into what that means at a later time. But I'm going to rise in body, being, balance, and business. And I have in all 4 areas over the last 18 months. But now it's time that I actually share my journey with you. Now, the rise or die mentality isn't for you. It's actually for me. This whole podcast makes me uncomfortable. I don't feel qualified to do a podcast. I don't feel comfortable to do a podcast, which is exactly why I'm going to do the fucking podcast. That's exactly why. When we're comfortable, we're complacent. When we're uncomfortable, there's growth, there's expansion, and we're able to rise. Now, every single day, in fact, let me back up again. So many people glorify entrepreneurship. And I get it. It's cool to, work for yourself, make a shitload of money. By the way, entrepreneurship is either the lowest paying or the highest paying job. People don't tell you about the low end, those that don't make it. And it's like 75 or 80% of everyone. People don't talk about the negatives, the negative impacts that entrepreneurship has on your marriage and on your fitness and across the board, your faith in God. It drastically impacts every area of your life. Right now, I'm recording this at 7:34 p.m. on December 6th, and it's 7:34 p.m. and I'm not spending time with my wife. I just had dinner with her. I'll spend a little time with her before bed, but this is just one very easy, simple example of the fact that entrepreneurship is not some glorious idea that people chase after, and the grind that everyone talks about and glorifies is some just phenomenal activity that you do for a few years and shit works out. That's not the case at all. I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of my personal body, being, balance, and business. I'm going to let you know where I'm at, where my goals are taking me. Targets. I don't believe in goals. Goals are nice ideas with no expiration date. Targets are basically goals with an expiration date and plan of action. I'll get into that again in another podcast, but I'm going to take you through my body, being, balance, and business. But let me give you a little bit of background. 18 months ago, maybe 20 months or so ago, somewhere in that time frame, February of 2016, I got married. And within a week of getting back from our honeymoon, it was hell. Our marriage was absolute hell. See, I was raised with this mentality that you got to focus on business, 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 business. Now, what's cool is at 19, I brought in my first $1 million in sales. I was already making $100K at 19 and 20 years old. Money was not an issue, but all I did was chase money, 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 money. And I'm not going to knock money. A lot of this podcast is going to be about money, entrepreneurship, getting shit done. I'm not knocking money. But I was a one-dimensional douchebag instead of a four-dimensional modern-day man, modern-day warrior. And again, I say it over and over, but I'll get to that later. Can't spoil everything for the first podcast and make this 3 hours long. So I got married and things went downhill quick. I had no fulfillment in my life. I had no sense of real purpose. It was just make money. And that frustration directly translated into fights and arguments with my wife. I put my fist through a door at one point. We would get into screaming matches. I was a complete and utter asshole, a one-dimensional douchebag to say the least. And I had business down, but I didn't have body, being, or balance. I was like 50 pounds overweight. Now I'm like 10, so I've come a long way in the last 18 months or whatever it was. I had no relationship with God in any way, shape, or form. That has drastically changed. And my marriage has drastically changed to one that I enjoy. And I'll give you color around each one as we go. I'm not just going to leave you hanging. I'll give you stories about each one. But here's what happened for me. I was so miserable in body, being, and balance that I gave up business. I gave it all away, meaning I paid every penny I had and then $90,000 I didn't have to figure out a way to actually change my life and change in body, being, and balance. You heard that right. I actually went $90,000 in debt only a year ago. This was about 12 months ago. I went $90,000 in debt because I was so sick of focusing on just business and having a shitty marriage, having no purpose, no fulfillment. Life was hell. I was adamant that I was going to change that. So at this point, and again, I'll shed more color around all of this. At this point, I have body, being, and balance. And now I'm an entrepreneur working my way back up to where I can look you in the eye and say, I have business down pat. I know my shit, but I gave it all away. Paid it all away because I was so miserable. And now I got to build it back up. So this is applicable to you for a few reasons. One, most people have shitty marriages or dating relationships, whatever the case is. Most people don't have a solid relationship with God, just like I didn't, and I still work on every day. Most people don't even have money, but that's what they focus on day in and day out. Whether you have it or don't have it, you can be money hungry. You can be a selfish bastard just like I was. Now, I can talk to you about body, being, and balance. I'm going to give you insight from my life, whether it's good or bad. If I blow up on my life, guess what? It holds me accountable if I'm vulnerable and actually spill my guts, on whatever idiotic mistake I made. I'm also going to share with you the challenges that come with entrepreneurship, putting in stupid hours, waking up at 4 a.m., not going to bed till 10 p.m., 11 p.m., sometimes not even going to bed at all. And it's not glorious. It sucks. And I'm going to share the struggles with you, but you're also going to get to share with me the joy I have and the fulfillment I have from rising. I want you guys to see the entire spectrum of emotions, the entire spectrum of, essentially the daily war that we're in every single fucking day. You have to rise. In body, being, balance, and business. I want you to rise with me, which is why I started this podcast. That's exactly why it's called Rise or Die. Rise with me every single day in this podcast. All I want you to do is listen to the 5 to 10 minute audio. Write down one thing you get from my struggles. I'm not asking you to share your struggles. I'm not asking you to be vulnerable. I'm asking you to take something away from my struggles, my pain, and hopefully once in a while, my accomplishments. I'm going to share that all with you. All I need you to do is apply it to your life, and it starts by writing one thing down every single fucking day. Don't take a day off. Never take a day off. Even if you have a shitty day, the best thing that you can do for yourself, your family, your business, everything that entails you, the best thing you can do is stay consistent in the work. Do the fucking work. DTFW. Do the fucking work. That's all I can tell you. Start by writing one thing down, figuring out how to apply it in your life, and then share the podcast with someone. Be vulnerable. I am going to ask you to be vulnerable in one way. You're not going to share anything with me. You're not going to share anything with the audience of the Rise or Die podcast. Share the podcast with a friend. It doesn't benefit me any. There's no ads on this podcast. There never will be any ads. I don't get money from it. Share it with someone so they can also start to rise in their body, being, balance, and business. For me, it's not just about you. It's about you and your family. If I can impact one of you, just one of the probably 3 listeners when I launch this podcast, and eventually it will grow. But if I can just impact one of you guys in your families, then that's the entire goal behind this. I'm more fulfilled than I could ever ask for. So that's episode 1. I didn't give you a whole lot of awesome content and stories. I wanted to explain what the Rise or Die podcast is all about, what I'm doing, who I am, and I'm going to share more and more with you every single day. They'll be between 5 and 10 minutes. This one's coming up on 12 and a half. Bear with me. Take this journey with me, and do me a favor and share the podcast with someone that needs to hear this message as well. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.